Welcome back to Historical Context. Today we continue our colonization of New England unit, and today we talk about a pretty big event, the event that the Pilgrims appear to be best known for, and that's the first Thanksgiving. But what a lot of people gather about the first Thanksgiving comes from popular culture. And so today we're going to dig in and look at what the people who were there actually said about the first Thanksgiving. So the Pilgrims returned to the colony after last week's episode of being out and interacting with new native tribes. The weather is beginning to cool and harvest is upon the colony. William Bradford captures the events leading up to this moment in Of Plymouth Plantation. And Edward Winslow captures the first Thanksgiving in a letter home written in December of 1621. Let's look at what William Bradford has to say first. They began now to gather in the small harvests they had, and to prepare their houses for the winter, being well recovered in health and strength, and plentifully provisioned. For while some had been thus employed in affairs away from home, others were occupied in fishing for cod, bass, and other fish, of which they caught a good quantity, every family having their portion. Bradford continues, as winter approached, wild fowl began to arrive, of which there were plenty when they came here first, though afterwards they became more scarce. As well as wild fowl, they got an abundance of wild turkeys, besides venison. So it's interesting to hear about wild turkeys at the first Thanksgiving. You would think that maybe that wasn't something that happened, but it seems to have been a part of it. And before we get to that, after Bradford's discussing the harvest, something unexpected happens. A ship arrives. And it's in November of 1621. Robert Cushman and 35 others arrive at the colony delivering the Pierce patent, which we talked about last week. Cushman had angered the Netherland Puritans with the patent, and they flatly rejected it. But he was there to get the approval of the Plymouth Pilgrims. The Netherland Puritans were the English separatists that were left behind in the Netherlands so that the colony could be formed. Cushman, when he brought this to the Netherland Puritans, flatly rejected it, but he had hoped that by taking it over to Plymouth, the Plymouth Pilgrims would approve it. Cushman was able to convince the Plymouth Pilgrims to accept the Pierce patent, because after 1 year there, the Pilgrims realized they needed help from London. Winslow describes in the final portion of Mort's Relation, which was a letter written in December 1621, how the first Thanksgiving happened. Let's have a look. Many of the Indians coming amongst us, and among the rest of their greatest king Massasoit, with some 90 men, whom for 3 days we entertained and feasted, and they went out and killed 5 deer, which they brought to the plantation and bestowed on our governor, and upon the captain and others. And although it be not always so plentiful as it was at this time with us, yet by the goodness of God we are so far from want that we often wish you partakers of our plenty. Now that is a letter from Winslow to people back in England. Sounds like great things are happening, and that's the description there of the first Thanksgiving. Winslow also added commentary about relations with the natives. Let's have a look. We have found the Indians very faithful in their covenant of peace with us, very loving and ready to pleasure us. We often go to them and they come to us. Some of us have been 50 miles by land in the country with them. The occasions and relations whereof you shall understand by our general, and more full declaration of such things as are worth the noting. Yea, it has pleased God so to possess the Indians with a fear of us and love unto us. So Winslow notes that the natives both fear and love the colonists. Now, Winslow's account of the first Thanksgiving actually occurs before Cushman arrives at the colony, so it is likely that while we refer to it as Thanksgiving, or this event as the first Thanksgiving, it probably occurred in the month of October. Winslow concludes his letter by providing advice to his friend if he should decide to leave for the Plymouth colony. Winslow tells him that he should have a very good bread room for his biscuits, let your cask of beer and water be iron-bound, let not your meat be dry salted. Don't trust us to have corn. That's interesting. Build your cabin as open as you can. Bring a good store of clothes and bedding. Bring a musket for every man, and that was for bird hunting. Let the musket be long in the barrel, and don't worry about its weight. I found that of particular interest for later on in our study. He also added to bring lemon juice. Bring paper and linseed oil for your windows. Bring store of powder and shot. So lessons from Edward Winslow on what to do to be well prepared for living in Plymouth. The Winslow letter concluded, having been dated December 11th, 1621. 2 days after the letter, Robert Cushman leaves the colony with a supply for England and Winslow's writing, Mort's relation, to take back. Cushman would leave his teenage son Thomas in the custody of William Bradford. Thomas Cushman would remain a fixture in Puritan society for the next 7 decades. On the way back to England, Cushman's ship was attacked and robbed by French pirates, who stole the supplies but fortunately left the ship intact. Otherwise, the story of the first Thanksgiving, included in Mort's relation, may have been lost forever. It came that close. Despite what appears to be good times, the Pilgrims ran into a problem shortly after the supply ship left. Let's have a look. Soon after the ship's departure, the great Narragansett tribe, in a braving manner, sent a messenger to them with a bundle of arrows tied about with a great snakeskin, which their interpreters told them was a threatening challenge. So apparently this bundle of arrows is a threatening message from this rival tribe that has been told, the Pilgrims have been told time and time again, you're going to have a problem here. So it shouldn't have come as a surprise, but yet it's a stressful thing to deal with. The Pilgrims sent the snakeskin back with bullets in it. Talk about a response. But the tribe actually did not accept it. They wouldn't even look at it. Bradford wrote that he assumed the death of so many natives left the tribe wishing to lord over the region, and that the English were getting in their way. The colony did not take any chances when it came to this threat, and made several defensive changes to their homes. The colony was split into 4 squadrons, each on a rotation to patrol the area. So now they have constant patrol. The town was fully enclosed by March of 1622, which also happens to be the same month as the Jamestown Massacre. So it's ironic that while the massacre of Jamestown is occurring, the Plymouth Pilgrims, under totally different threat, are basically finishing the defenses of their colony. Bradford concludes this segment of his writing by telling a very interesting story that occurred on Christmas Day, 1621. Let's have a look. On Christmas Day, the governor called the people out to work as usual, but most of the new company excused themselves and said it was against their conscience to work on that day. So the governor told them if they made it a matter of conscience, he would spare them till they were better informed. So he went with the rest and left them. But on returning from work at noon, he found them at play in the street, some pitching the bar, some at stool ball, and such like sports. So he went to them and took away their games, and told them that it was against his conscience that they should play and others work. If they made the keeping of the day a matter of devotion, let them remain in their houses, but there should be no gaming and reveling in the streets. Since then, nothing has been attempted in that way, at least openly. Certainly a preview of Puritan culture right there. The devotion versus celebration of Christmas Day. So an interest, that was just fascinating, a fascinating commentary there by William Bradford, opening our eyes to the culture there and even some of the differences occurring. Trouble is about to arrive at Plymouth. But it is not coming from where you think it's coming from, the natives. It comes from England. And we'll talk about that next time on Historical Context.